Chapter 8. Hidden in Plain Sight. After a grueling ascent of well over 100 steps, thanks once again to another inevitable lift failure, Nick finally emerged from the Covent Garden underground. His legs burned from the climb, but he was used to it. Elevator outages in England had become as common as grey skies and lukewarm tea. Blinking as he stepped into the daylight, Nick squinted at the lively scene around him. Crowds bustled through the market square, oblivious to the drama that had unfolded just moments ago on the Piccadilly line. But what drew his eye wasn't the sea of tourists or the street performers. It was a familiar EMD news van parked nearby. Sure enough, just a few feet ahead stood Stacey Watson, microphone in hand and camera bot hovering loyally at her shoulder. Her long brown coat flared as she moved briskly, speaking excitedly to her mechanical companion. "Stacey, are you certain about this?" the camera bot asked in its flat, tinny voice, its lenses sweeping the surrounding area with methodical precision. "Of course I am," she chirped, her eyes sparkling. "The Lost causing trouble in central London? That's headline gold. And if Zeus is here..." She let out a small, hopeful gasp. "Imagine the exclusives." Nick paused, half amused, half curious. She was persistent, he'd give her that. As if on cue, Stacey turned and spotted him. Her face brightened with journalistic instinct, and she quickly strode over. "Excuse me, sir," she said, already flipping open her notepad. "You wouldn't happen to know which line the Lost gang were spotted on, would you?" Nick raised an eyebrow, his expression a mixture of tiredness and wry amusement. Of all people to approach for information. "They were on the Piccadilly line," he replied smoothly. "Though if you're hoping for an easy trip down, you're out of luck. Lift's out of order. You'll have to take the scenic route." Stacey groaned with theatrical dismay, but her fingers scribbled down the answer all the same. "Figures," she muttered, already shifting her weight, preparing for another sprint. "Thanks again," she called as she turned, her camera bot whirring into motion beside her. "Wish me luck." Nick watched her descend the steps he'd just conquered, vanishing once more into the depths of the station with the same relentless energy she had when pestering Gina for an interview. He shook his head, letting out a small chuckle. "You've just spoken to Zeus himself," he muttered under his breath, the corners of his mouth lifting into a grin. "And you didn't even notice." The irony wasn't lost on him. Hidden in plain sight, this was to become a habit. As Nick strolled deeper into Covent Garden Market, he felt like he'd stepped into another world, one where the past and future collided in dazzling harmony. Victorian brick facades framed glass-roofed arcades, beneath which danced vibrant neon signage in kanji, hangul, Thai script, and Mandarin, each vying for attention amidst the British charm. The air shimmered with ambient light from overhead holograms, gently rotating above the heads of the milling crowd. Futuristic projections advertised eccentric yet oddly compelling products. Fizz Whiz, a carbonated candy that sparkled as you chewed it. Quantum Quiche, which claimed to shift flavour mid-bite. Augmented Ale, promising a mild hallucination of one's ideal pub. And Cyber Cider, complete with embedded mood sensors that adjusted flavour based on the drinker's emotions. Nick paused briefly beneath a glowing cherry blossom tree. Artificial, no doubt, but beautiful nonetheless. and watched a new set of adverts flicker into place mid-air. On one side, a polished, reassuring narrator's voice encouraged, "Travel without fear. Explore the Alps of Switzerland or the coral reefs of the Great Barrier Dome. Add a licensed bodyguard to your itinerary for just 100 credits a day." A second hologram, however, displayed a starker path, a muscular black-armoured Xerxes soldier posed heroically under the slogan, "Order through strength. Join the elite today." Opposite it, a serene woman in green robes stood beneath a digital tree, arms raised towards a swirling sky. Her message glowed, "The children of Gaia welcome you. Heal the world, heal your soul." Nick sighed. Escape or enlist, indoctrinate or disappear. For some, the future offered too many choices. For others, none at all. But his growing hunger pulled him back to something simpler, something grounded. The scent of grilled meat, sweet ginger, and fresh herbs wafted through the air like a siren's call. Nick's stomach growled audibly as he followed the aroma trail into a bustling side alley of the market where open stalls bustled with activity, each offering a vibrant slice of Asia amidst the London backdrop. Tokyo Bowl Express beckoned first, steam rising in fragrant clouds from cauldrons of deep, rich ramen topped with soft eggs and slices of smoky pork. Next door, Dragon Street Bites offered dumplings that crackled as they were pulled from the pan, served with a rainbow of dipping sauces that ranged from citrusy to eye-watering. Wok. This way lived up to its name, with roaring flames leaping skyward as chefs tossed vegetables and noodles in slick iron pans, the clatter of spatulas providing a rhythmic beat. A few stalls down, Lucky Lantern noodles offered ribbon-like strands, coated in peanut chili, sesame oil, or squid ink. Nick found himself drawn to the heartwarming smell of Ratia's Pad Thai Express, where a middle-aged Thai woman worked a flaming wok with surgical precision, garnishing each portion with lime wedges, coriander, and chopped peanuts. Just across, Fo King Street Eats had a queue forming fast, the broth's deep aroma of star anise and charred onion carrying through the crowd. Satay Sensation and Sisig Street Savouries competed for attention with sizzling skewers and fragrant rice bowls, each bite promising bold, layered flavours. The market thrummed with life, alive with the vibrant energy of Asian street food culture. Aromas of sizzling oils, aromatic spices, and slow-cooked broths drifted through the air, wrapping themselves around Nick like a familiar blanket. Chatter and laughter spilled from the crowded kiosks, blending with the clatter of pans and the occasional call from animated vendors. As he meandered through the bustling corridor of flavours, Nick's anticipation grew, his senses delighting in the sheer abundance on offer. But it was the unmistakable scent of rich ramen, earthy, savoury, comforting, that tugged at something deeper. In an instant, he was back at Connor's house, seated at the Jenkins kitchen table, watching Kasumi, Connor's mother, expertly ladle broth into ceramic bowls. Kasumi's quiet grace was matched only by the precision with which she cooked. Her meals were an education, each one steeped in tradition and love, a cultural touchstone that Nick had come to revere. Every dish was a celebration of heritage, every bite a lesson in humility and connection. The memory softened Nick's expression as he walked, his thoughts drifting to the remarkable story of how Kasumi and Stan had met. It sounded almost too cinematic to be true. A chance trip to Neo-Tokyo after Stan won a travel contest. A fateful encounter in a side street where he'd thwarted a mugging and saved a stranger's life. That stranger had been Kasumi. What followed, a thank you turned first date and a romance that blossomed across cultures, left a lasting impression on Nick. It was a love forged in adversity, yet built on mutual respect and curiosity. Their eventual marriage was not just a union of two people, but two worlds, yet not everyone had embraced that union. While Kasumi's family had welcomed Stan with open arms, Stan's own relatives proved less accepting. Deep-seated anti-UAA prejudice simmered beneath the surface, leading to strained relationships and quiet estrangements. Nick had seen how this fractured dynamic weighed on Connor, how relatives who once sent birthday cards simply faded away. Still, within the walls of the Jenkins home, there was warmth, laughter, and resilience. And always, there was the kitchen, a haven where prejudice couldn't follow, where love was served one dish at a time. Nostalgia welled in Nick's chest as he approached Tokyo Bowl Express, its signage glowing in crimson and gold. The scent of tonkotsu broth grew stronger with every step, drawing him in like a lighthouse. The vendor behind the counter greeted him with a nod, already preparing his order before Nick could even speak. Moments later, a bowl of tonkotsu ramen was placed gently into his hands, a masterpiece of culinary craftsmanship. The broth was a pale, milky cloud of flavour, rich with depth and history. Slices of braised pork lay gently atop firm noodles, accompanied by half-boiled eggs, with yolks like molten gold, a scattering of spring onions, and delicate mushrooms that promised umami bliss. A complimentary bottle of chilled water was handed to him, simple yet thoughtful. Carrying his meal with both reverence and care, Nick found a vacant table tucked beneath the tiered balconies of the market. It was quieter here, offering him a view of the glowing stalls while shielding him from the rush. He sat. The first sip of broth was like stepping into a memory, warming, soothing, familiar. He let it linger on his tongue before swallowing, then chased it with a slurp of noodles, their firmness offering the perfect contrast to the velvety soup. Between bites, he sipped water to reset his palate, deepening his appreciation for the layers of flavour that each mouthful delivered. It was exceptional. And yet, it wasn't Kasumi's ramen. Something was missing, not in execution, but in soul. Her cooking had that unspoken magic born from years of practice, passed down through generations. It wasn't just technique. It was care. It was memory. It was home. Even so, Nick smiled as he ate, comforted by the meal and what it represented. In a world that had spun into chaos, some things remained steadfast. Some things, like good food and better memories, had the power to heal, if only for a moment. As Nick continued eating, the vibrant hum of Covent Garden's market cafeteria persisted, until a sudden flicker from the holographic screens shifted the atmosphere. A bold, red breaking news banner unfurled across every display, cutting through the background noise like a blade. The screens tuned into EMD 24/7 News, the channel's familiar jingle replaced by the urgency of live reporting. The image sharpened to reveal Stacey Watson, her expression tense as she stood in front of the Covent Garden underground station, mic in hand. the EMD logo gleaming under harsh lights. "This is Stacey Watson, reporting live from Covent Garden," she began, her voice edged with urgency. "In a shocking turn of events, 3 members of the Lost Gang infiltrated the underground this afternoon in what appears to be an audacious robbery attempt. The situation quickly escalated. 1 passenger was nearly killed during the chaos." The footage, cut to raw clips, frightened commuters clustered together in the aftermath, voices shaky as they recounted the event. The camera swept across the subdued gang members, Scar, Daps, and Keisha, now handcuffed and surrounded by stoic Xerxes soldiers. Their expressions flickered between arrogance and fatigue as they were led toward unmarked security vans destined for interrogation. Nick watched silently, ramen halfway to his mouth. A strange numbness took hold as he stared at the screen. It wasn't them. They didn't stop it. I did. He leaned slightly closer to the table, whispering into his wrist's nanolinker, his voice barely audible. "I should be the one on that news report. Apollo?" Apollo's response resonated directly in his mind, calm and steady. "It's for the best, Nick. Your presence in London must remain discreet. If Black Death or their sympathizers find out you're here, everything changes. Captain Rhodes and Master William would agree." Nick exhaled sharply through his nose, fingers combing through his damp fringe. "Yeah, I get it. I just..." He paused, swallowing his frustration. "I guess I can do more good as Zeus than I ever could as myself." "Precisely," Apollo affirmed. "The Mark IV conceals your identity, alters your voice, and shields your presence. It gives you freedom and safety." Nick clenched his fist beneath the table. He was surrounded by hundreds of people, laughing, talking, unaware that just hours ago he'd risked his life for strangers, that he'd prevented bloodshed, that he'd fought to honor his parents' memory. And now someone else was getting the credit. His gaze drifted back to Stacey, now interviewing shell-shocked witnesses. Some spoke of a masked hero, others were unsure. No one mentioned him by name, and maybe that was the point. Nick knew the truth. But it didn't make the silence any easier. "You did what you had to do, Nick," he muttered under his breath, setting down the chopsticks. "Not for the thanks, not for the headlines, because it was right." That was the lesson, wasn't it? Being a symbol meant putting the mission before the man, justice before recognition. Rising from the table, Nick pulled on his jacket, checked his surroundings, and moved toward the exit. The soft evening air brushed across his face as he stepped back into the neon-tinged streets of London. The city sprawled before him, beautiful and dangerous, full of secrets yet to be unearthed. His journey was far from over, but he no longer walked in doubt. He was learning, adapting, becoming, not just a boy in the shadow of grief, but a force for change. A guardian in plain sight. He was Zeus,